ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, participants, and speakers. We've heard today that we live in a highly interconnected world. And the buzzword of this century is connectivity. So I will take you to a journey in the next 10 to 15 minutes where we will explore the future of this amazing and highly ambitious geopolitical initiative called the Three Seas Initiative. So nothing is moving. I think that technology doesn't like me today, and I really have prepared some slides that are not showing up. Let's see.
Yes, success.
We have success, and we were moving forward into the future. That means patience. Yeah. So, now everything works. Let's start the journey. So, as you have heard from the presentations today, the Three Seas Initiative is the most ambitious and boldest geopolitical and geoeconomic project of the future. It actually pursues a very ambitious goal to not only create new opportunities for the 12 European Union members in the region to further integrate into the European Union, but it actually seeks to also create new opportunities for integration. So it's no longer just about creating connectivity and infrastructure and energy corridors between the East and West, but it's also about the North and the South. The second important point is that the European Union pursues the ambitious goal of becoming a coherent geopolitical actor. And in fact, this is the greatest incentive for the European Union to support the Three Seas Initiative in becoming a coherent, integrative part of the European Union family, and even, I would say, to go beyond that by expanding the geo-economic enlargement process. And finally, the European Union has been strongest when the European Union members worked together with the European institutions. And this is another reason why I actually am very optimistic about the future of this project. However, there are also some hurdles. The European Union is not the only geopolitical actor in this region. There are other external players trying to explore and penetrate this geoeconomic space. And in that matter, the presence of actors such as China and Russia is going to increase in the future. So, against this background, the European Union and the United States pursue, in fact, common geopolitical goals and coincide in their geoeconomic calculations to prevent such presence from growing, to prevent external actors from penetrating this geoeconomic space. You all have heard about ambitious geostrategic projects such as the Belt and Road Initiative, and specifically the Central and Eastern Europe are a large part of this project in Europe. Another format that is very, very known here is the 17+1 format. Lithuania has become the first member of this regional format launched by China, which decided to abandon, to exit, and actually called on the European Union to move from 17 plus 1 or 16 plus 1 towards more inclusive and more efficient 27 plus 1 format in dealing with China. So in the future, the major geopolitical question of how to deal with external actors such as China, to some extent also Russia, whose presence has been also growing in the region, is going to be very decisive into how the European Union and the United States will forge partnerships, alliances to actually support the Three Seas initiative. And in that matter, the Three Seas initiative is the space where geopolitics and geoeconomics meet in Europe. But what about the future of this initiative? Where do you see the future of the Three Seas initiative in 20 to 30 years from now? In order to imagine, because this morning we've heard about the need for imagination, so in order to imagine alternative futures for the Three Seas initiative, I'm going to explore the following scenarios with you. Scenarios that are based on alternative futures model. As you can see, I have developed 4 alternatives for the Three Seas initiative, and I will also present you with one game changer at the end. So let's start with the battlefield of vision and connectivity. Let us all imagine a future by around 2040, 2050, where the Three Seas initiative countries are doing so great. They are generating economic growth. They have, in fact, strong political stability and enjoy social vitality. But at the very same time, countries such as China or Russia have also managed to successfully introduce alternative projects, be it in the field of energy or infrastructure or other digital initiatives. So what it means is that by 2050, we might end up in a situation of an increased competition over visions, over connectivity initiatives, over the way how we actually want to shape this space. And competition is not a bad word, because in reality, this scenario would mean that the major players, such as the European Union with its institutions, and also Washington, of course, the United States, would actually felt the pressure to support, to engage, and to actually do more. But the most decisive component will be, in fact, who the victor of the fourth industrial revolution is going to be. So this battlefield will be decided by the way how the Three Seas initiative countries will in fact adapt to digitalization and will actually capitalize on the fourth industrial revolution. So it's of course an open question mark. Now let us imagine a world in which we have a scenario of the Three Seas initiative countries, in fact, not being capable of generating economic growth, dealing with social tensions, being in a situation of political instability. So, of course, all of these amazing initiatives and projects are going to be challenged by a dragon bear that is still doing quite well, is still being successful in pushing forward its own imagination about the rules of the game, about the way how they want to penetrate this space. So it becomes a highly contested and fragmented space in which the prospects for success for the Three Seas initiative are actually doomed to fail. And then, of course, there is a third scenario. Finally, the trimarium is the successful formula, the one that its predecessor, the intermarium, could not achieve 100 years ago. What kind of situation or scenario that means? A scenario in which the Three Seas Initiative countries are generating economic growth, are pushing forward through bilateral and multilateral initiatives, are receiving support from European institutions, American investors, and at the very same time, the dragon bear is splitted, is witnessing structural issues, is not able to involve with the region or to actually propose and win the hearts and minds of the Central and Eastern European countries. This, of course, is a best case scenario for our region in a period of 2040-2050. But then there is also a worst case scenario, one that is determined by a doomsday prognosis, considering both, on the one side, the Central and Eastern European countries, in a sense that they are not able to produce any further economic growth, are split through political, social tensions, and at the very same time, there is also a weak dragon bear operating on the ground. Of course, it emerges a gray, diffuse space, a porous world in which every country acts only for itself. No bloc can actually achieve the upper hand, can actually win, so to say, in this diffuse world. Disinformation campaigns, a kind of a hybrid warfare folk, is basically being established in this huge space. Worst case scenario, bad news for Europe, we don't want to have such scenario in the future. What about the game changer? Now imagine a world in which there is a new bifurcation of the global system. At the top of our global affairs system, there is a new, real systemic rivalry between the United States and China. One that encompasses all relevant socioeconomic networks the way we know them. That means the US-dominated and the US-led international organizational leverage that was left after the collapse of the Soviet Union, but also the supremacy of the West in all these relevant networks is being daily challenged by China. In this bifurcation, there is a big risk that the Central and Eastern European region becomes a victim of a new bipolarization of the international relations, in a sense that the two systemic rivals decide to split the region once again. This will be a game changer we don't want to see, because this would also mean an isolation, in a sense that a new Iron Curtain is being erected along the NATO eastern flank, and the two parts of the region have to exist in an isolated way once again. So these are alternative futures. And as it was said in the morning, keep in mind that the bricks that have been used to erect walls can also be used to build bridges. And when I speak about bridges, I mean one specific actor we're still a little bit cautious to participate actively in this project. This is Austria. Now, Austria takes, and we are back in the now. When I talk about Austria, of course, this is a country that occupies a very unique position. It hasn't been a member of the Warsaw Pact or of Yugoslavia. It is not a NATO member. And yet it sees and perceives itself as a bridge builder, so to say, between the West and the East. And right now, with this very ambitious geopolitical and geoeconomic project of the Three Seas Initiative, Austria can also build bridges between the North and the South. So where do I see the role of Austria in this project? First and foremost, it is just a matter of time for Austria to decide to participate more actively. Second, there are certain experiences and certain multiplier effects that Austria could bring on the table by reaching out to European institutions, by reaching out to stakeholders that can get interested in the project. And third, of course, one might say Austria could be also a spoiler. That is true. However, energy interests are not everything that determines the Three Seas Initiative. And Austria does realize that the energy interests of its neighbors, and mostly, of course, the direct neighbors in Central Europe, need to be pursued equally as it is the case with the Austrian interests. So, in that matter, once again, Austria will not be a free rider. Austria will contribute, and it is a question of time to do the right thing. So thank you very much.